Thank you for coming today to our November 10th Academic Advising Seminar. Our presenters today are Mike Ropley, and also Sharon George will be here to also assist in presenting the material. Our workshop topic today is more about advising and preparing students for registration. And I understand today that the internet has had several challenges because of the flurry of students who are registering. Many of our freshmen now, this is their key date to go ahead and register. So we have some computer challenges, but we're ready to pursue this and continue on. Also, for our first time, we are going to use Adobe Connect to connect with our Grand Rapids campus. So we hope to have them join us shortly. They're not online yet. I think if anybody's interested, this is our last workshop for the fall semester. If you get a chance, you may have seen either through a university-wide announcement, a brochure like this, and you certainly can find this on the faculty advising guide. And we have many more workshops coming up in January, February, March, and April, and different topics based on a faculty advising survey that many of you may have answered last spring. So we're thrilled to have you here, and I'm going to let Mike and Sharon go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. As Deb has said, my name is Mike Ropley. I am the Interim Educational Counselor in the College of Engineering Technology. And so, and with me is Sharon George. She is the Ed Counselor in the College of Business. So we are going to double team today for our session. We've got a lot to talk about today, and we will also have a third individual joining us, and that's Carla Erlewine from Financial Aid. And basically, some of you have probably heard where the federal government has done a lot of enhancing, changing, modifying to the financial aid guidelines, and that will significantly affect our students and may also affect how we need to advise our students. So we thought it would be appropriate to have Carla address you as well. So I'm going to speak initially, we'll break and let Carla do a spiel on financial aid, and then Sharon will come up at the end. The food and beverages are in the back of the room. If you would like to help yourself and eat while we're speaking, feel free, okay? We know it's a lunch working meeting, and so please feel comfortable to do that. So, again, if you've not already done this, I am going to refer in my portion to some things that are in my FSU and also on our regular Ferris website. So if you'd like to open up those and follow along, you can. You also should all have a file folder which will have a number of handouts in it that will tie into everything that will be discussed today. So feel free to, it's yours to take with you to make notes, that kind of thing, as we go. The real goal of this session is to help give you maybe some new tools or additional tools for your toolbox to help you better advise or be more efficient in advising your students. We've gone through a lot of transition the last 2 years with my degree, and now, of course, the financial aid piece is a real change, and so we need to try to work smart, and we want to give you some tools today to help you do that. So what I'm going to do is just take a second and hold up a couple things. Most of you, when you get ready to meet with a student, you probably will get ready and go about meeting with the student in one of two ways. You probably will go into Banner, and you might pull out their, look at their transcripts. You may open up My Degree and look at their file in My Degree. Obviously, you could go and start in either direction. My Degree was new in fall of 2010, so anyone starting fall 2010 or after, My Degree will give them a full range of options. Students that started prior to that, you know, they have limited use of My Degree, so for a lot of them, especially those of you that have off-campus students, you know, you're probably going to still look at the course check sheet as well as, you know, Banner to plan and have that dialogue with your advisees. Again, the average advisor has somewhere between 18 and 30 advisees. I know a couple of our friends here from criminal justice have approaching 80 advisees. And so These kids are supermen over here, right? Or superwomen. And so hats off to you. So, anyway, let's, I'm going to go into the Ferris homepage, and you go up under the tab up there that says Ferris Resources. It'd be the third tab from the right. The first option is Advising Guide. If you would like to click on there, we'll take a peek at the Advising Guide. A lot of things, some of you probably have used this before, but I'd like to go down and touch on a few things, some tools, if you will, some new things. If you look here under Tools for Advising and Registration down the left side and click on there, you'll get in there and there will be a number of tools. On the right, of course, you know, we have options, but I'd like you to also go over to the left and go where it says General Education. And you'll see a list here of all the different degrees that we offer at Ferris. Obviously, there are different gen ed requirements for an associate degree versus a BS degree and so forth. And any of you that are in a program and have been in a program for any length of time, your check sheets obviously have these gen eds already embedded in them. But something that is new and a great tool, if you go over here on the left where it says, let's see here, take one for an example. Let's take Bachelor of Science degree. And then over here on the left where it says courses that meet requirements. Click on that. And up at the top you'll see this new dancing red arrow that says new. Fred Heck and his group have put together a gen ed course list that's sortable now. And this is a great tool, and I would encourage you to make this a shortcut on your desktop. But if you'll click on that, you'll get into a screen that will give you sort of the directions. But just click off of that, and you will find a list of all the gen ed courses. And then there will be a series of columns to the right, and you'll just look for the check. If it's a cultural, you know, global, race, gender, science, sociology, if it's writing intensive, all those will be designated there. And this is a great tool for you and your students because many times it's not always clear as to which class works for what. And also if you go and you click on the class, under the course column there, it'll give you a course description for the class. So it's a really great tool for advising. In your folders, you also will find this paper sheet with the red and green boxes on it. This is one that we use a lot in the College of Engineering Technology. This is sort of a graphic way to show the cultural and social electives. So you have the electronic version that's up here on the screen. This is a paper version. I like this one because I circle the classes with the students, and I give them a copy, and I put a copy in their folder, and it's a nice talking kind of a chart, if you will, because in my opinion, this is probably one of the more confusing aspects of advising, the cultural and the social, and then meeting the global and the, you know, and the race and the foundations and all those things. It gets very confusing for a lot of our students. Yes, sir, Tom?
Yeah, I agree, Mike. Just a comment. This is relatively new, and I don't think
Yes.
the students have a clue that this is out there.
It is new.
I booted this up in my class the other day, and they all wanted to know how to get there. So
Good.
just right in class, it takes 3 minutes to take class time, but then they know where it is, and they can sort through that.
Very good. Fred Heck's group has been working on this for over a year now, and his group has done some neat things to try to enhance it. They added the credit column. The first version of this did not have that column that showed credit value, and they've really enhanced it nicely. And so I would encourage you, thanks for your comment, Tom, to you know, to consider that as a tool, you know, for your toolbox into the future. Now, they're color-coded, you know, and those of you that have writing intensive courses in your programs, the column farthest to the right, you'll see the check there. I see Lee here. You guys have some, I believe, don't you, Lee?
What's that?
Writing intensive courses?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, okay. All right, I knew you did at one point.
What do the little stars mean versus the checks in the colors, codes?
Activity versus
Yes,
fault punishment, at least in fault punishment.
Yeah, for
Bad.
scientific understanding, it would include a lab.
So
that first screen that popped up when we logged in gave you like the little overview of that, but as you know, some cultural classes are activity courses like music and you know, band things, and that indicates that, and then also in the case of science, it tells you whether it's a lab class or not. So the asterisks mean different things in different columns. So again, you know, this is electronic version, this is the paper version. You know, two great tools. I would encourage you to take a look at that. One other thing that I put in your folder for you is the math grid. This math grid is kind of humorous because our colored printer was running out of ink, so it kind of made it into a tie-dye format. It's kind of cool.
Very nice.
That was not planned, but it's kind of cool. Anyway, a number of you will have students that will come to you and they may be confused about where they should be or where they should start in math. And we thought it would be appropriate to share this grid with you because if you look on the left side, you've got the ACT scores, the SAT scores, and then where the student should get placed to the right. Also on the very bottom of this, you will see the compass block. Compass is a math assessment test that we'll give to a student if we're not sure where they are. All of the international students, for example, that come to campus, other than a few Canadians, will take the compass test as part of their orientation to Ferris, and then we will place them in the correct math class based on the score they achieve on the compass. And so there are different types of compass. Math is broken down into pre-algebra, algebra, college algebra, trigonometry, and then based on the score, then over to the right would be their placement, which would be where they would start. So I offer this also as a tool for you. This is really critical when you have the first advising appointment with somebody that's a new student into your program, or maybe a new student to you as an advisor. So another tool for your toolbox. All right, I'm going to back up here. I'm back at the academic advising main page, and I'm going to go back down and talk about transfer equivalencies for a minute. You'll see I've got it highlighted. It's the second from the last option, the red on the left. You know, some of you have used this before. This is a great tool, not only when it comes to looking at classes that students might be bringing with them to Ferris, but also the student that maybe wants to go home this next summer and take a class at the local community college. You see a lot of that. Maybe they'll take English 150 here on campus, and their thoughts are, hey, next summer, or this coming summer, I would like to go home and punch out 250 at the community college. Well, you know, what course number will work for that? Great tool. Again, if you go to this, I have a shortcut on my desktop, and I use this a lot when I talk to students. There's two options, Michigan and out of state. Let's just click on Michigan and take a look. If you look here, down the left side of the page, you'll see all of the schools are listed there in alphabetical order. And you can just go on down, and let's just, we'll click on Beatty Knox Community College, and click on that. And then everything that pops up on the right, of course, would be Beatty Knox prefixes for all of their courses, and so you can scan on, walk on down. This is their prefix, not ours, but theirs. And again, let's say you're looking for an English class. You can go on down and go for E's. There's EN and ENGL. I would assume one of those is English. Let's look at EN first. Click on there. And the top line here will be their number, Beatty Knox, and the bottom line would be our equivalent. So if we're looking for their EN 101 is our English 150, and then their EN 102 is equal to our English 250. So if you're advising a student, you might say, hey, you're from Escanaba, you want to go home this summer, you know, take EN 102 at Beatty Knox, and you can bring it back. Again, our institution requirements are that it must be a straight C or higher grade for us to accept it back here on campus. So you really need to not only show them the site and promote the site, but also highlight the importance of that C or better grade to be able to bring it back. And this is, you know, true of, you know, the 28 community colleges in Michigan are well represented in this database. We also, of course, you know, have out-of-state schools, and this is a growing thing in that every time we get a student from out of state, we'll look at their credits and their classes, and we'll try to load that into the database. So I'm in out of state right now. Let's you'll just see how many there are. Look at them. We're still in A's here, but there are Canadians and a few internationals that show up in the out of state as well. And so again, they're always in alphabetical order, and once you click on the school to the left, the prefixes that pop up are always going to be that school's prefixes. It's not always obvious. You may have to do a R&D. Let's just click on Joliet Junior College, which is in Joliet, Illinois. Let's just say you want to find an econ class. You have a student that wants to take econ 221 there this summer. Again, you go down the list under E's. This one's pretty clear. ECON, I'm sure, is econ. If you look there, econ 103 is equal to our econ 221. Away you go. If it's there, you know, you can take it to the bank. Okay. If students asking about a class and you know, there's some grayness there, I would encourage you to get with your educational counselor to help clarify that grayness. Okay. So transfer equivalency is another good tool for your toolbox, if you will, to try to work smart. In your file folder, you have a handout that says advising students with macro agreements. This is a challenge sometimes to understand, and I thought that A, I would provide you with this handout, B, I would give you a short overview of my understanding of this. Macro basically is an agreement between all the community colleges in the state of Michigan and the universities in the state of Michigan as it relates to transferring credits for students that want to get a BS degree. It's been around for a long time. It's been revised. The most recent revision was done in the fall of 2010. And so the top of this page talks about the current version, and then as you move down, you'll see the web link there if you want to read more detail on it. And then also we highlight what the changes were and how it was administered before. We have a lot of students that are still on the old version of macro because it's all based on when you're admitted to Ferris. Okay. So let's take a look. Currently it says up here, it says macro stamps will be given by a Michigan community college after that student has met the institution's specific requirements. Each community college can have different requirements for the student to complete in order to be awarded a macro stamp. By the way, the macro stamp is shown on their transcript. So if you were to go into Extender, it would be indicated there. That's where you would look. They can get a macro stamp by taking the courses at that community college by themselves, or they can get it in conjunction with the associate degree. In other words, you can get a macro stamp without having an associate degree. Okay, you can get it either way. But it's on the transcript. That's where we verify it. But basically it says there, that's it, effective fall 10, the current version basically says that if somebody comes to us with a macro agreement, all their lower level division general education courses are done, complete. So for most of us, that would mean that if somebody had a macro stamp and they came to Ferris, their English 150 and 250 would be done. Their cultural and social would be done not only for the first 2 years, but for the whole BS degree, including fulfilling the global and the foundations and the race, gender, all that stuff. That stuff would be done, okay? The science would be done if they were not required to take a specific science class, okay? That's where it's a little gray. In the college that I work at, engineering technology, plastics, for example, requires chemistry. A lot of our engineering technology degrees require physics. If they have a macro, they still would have to take the chemistry and physics because those are degree requirements. Those aren't just general gen ed requirements. So certain gen ed courses that are, specifically required. For example, in our college, a lot of students take economics, Econ 221. That is a degree requirement. They still have to take that. A lot of students take ethics and technology. That is a degree requirement. So that will not replace one of the cultural. So it's a little confusing, but in some colleges it works really great. Criminal justice, you guys, a lot of students, off campus and on campus have really used that as an excellent tool. In other areas where there's a lot of heavy specific courses that are required, it's not as big a deal for them. But anyway, here is the policy, old and new. Mary Klein is an expert over there in education and human services. If you need any clarity as well, I would encourage you to consider talking with her on that. Okay, a couple other things, and I would like to touch base on, and let's find my copies here. You have another handout in your folder called Additional Sources of College Credit at Ferris. Advising would be fun if everybody was a FIDIAC and they all came in and they all had good ACTs, life would be good. But we all know that it's not always that nice and cut and dried. You'll have students that, will have taken CLEP tests or maybe have taken advanced placement tests, and then all of a sudden you need to reshape the plan that you have for them. And so what we've tried to do here is put some of these things all together on one piece of paper for you, okay? CLEP is the first one. And again, I guess, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but there are 34 different categories or types of CLEP tests that are out there. And here is some information on where students could get information. We have a testing office over in Timmy. Amy Otteson is running that office and is a good resource and is involved in scheduling some of these tests. Advanced placement is a program that comes from the high schools. Basically, students who participate in a high school class that has been designated as advanced placement, and they take a test and they get a 3 or higher score on a scale of 1 to 5, then can receive credit from us for their performance in that specific course area. And so you will see on our banner system where it'll say AP on there, that's advanced placement. That's where many times they'll get credit for a social awareness or a cultural enrichment type class, and it'll be designated accordingly in banner. Direct credit, dual credit is where students are coming to us where they've taken a class while they were in high school, where they've probably received credit for both the high school as well as the college credit. And the difference between direct credit and dual credit is really who's delivering the coursework. But what it means to them on their transcript is the same. Direct credit is where it's being taught by the high school teacher using our curriculum, okay? And dual credit tends to be, taught by our faculty. And so it's really a matter of who does the teaching. But it's normally associated with a specific course number. And if the student, achieves and demonstrates proficiency in that specific course area, then they are given credit here as well. Typically, very entry-level type courses. And then, of course, high school articulation. Again, articulation agreements have been around longer than all the other things, but basically they are, there's a written agreement between Ferris and the high school or career center, and it's tied to a class, and if the student demonstrates proficiency and also, there sometimes is a portfolio or some other exam associated with it, and they demonstrate proficiency, they will get credit for that particular class. Again, typically very rudimentary, entry-level type classes. Okay. A lot of things going on. I'm sure you've heard about middle colleges and you've heard about reverse transfers, and there's a lot of things going on in the state these days, obviously for a lot of reasons. The cost of education, the need to be more accountable in education, all these things. So while these are the current hot buttons, if you will, there are others that other things that will be evolving. So in this regard. So one other thing that I put in your packet, and that is the 3-page document staple that is the academic affairs policy on probation, academic dismissal, and returning to Ferris. In a few minutes, we're going to have Carla Irwine visit with you about some of the changes in financial aid. Our students, folks, really have and will have two kinds of pressures on them these days. We've always had the academic pressure, right? I mean, if they didn't maintain a 2.0, they were going to be on probation, and if they didn't improve that, they could be academically dismissed. And you've got a copy of that probation policy on page 1 and the dismissal policy on page 2. Well, the federal government has made some changes in financial aid, and so we're going to share that with you as well. They're going to be also feeling the pressure from the money side as well as the academic side. And so as advisors, we need to make sure that we are sensitive and we're trying to work with our students to help them from the financial aid side. We may have to encourage them to back off and not take such a big load so that they can do better academically. The old days of saying, go ahead and drop that class to preserve your GPA, that philosophy might not be such a good one anymore, because financial aid is looking at how many classes you take or register for versus how many you complete. Well, if you drop it, in their eyes, it's almost like if you failed it. So a little different world. And so Carla is going to be coming up here shortly. And Carla, are you ready? I think it's a good transition point. I don't know how many of you know Carla, but Carla is the coordinator of financial aid here at Ferris. And Sharon and I thought that it would be really appropriate if we could have her spend a little time with you on this very important new topic for us. By the way, help yourself to lunch. We will not be offended if you go around and move and eat. And again, Carla is the coordinator of financial aid here on our main campus. Thank you, Carla, for being here.
Ready for me? Well, yes, by all means, get your bellies full, because what I have to talk about is interesting, not overly exciting, but it's very important, as Mike alluded to. A lot of changes have happened in this last year, and so we're kind of calling on all the academic advisors to be able to help and assist us in determining whether students are making progress. And ultimately, that is what our goal is. The federal government is saying to us, are these students that we're giving money to making progress? And if they're not, can they? And that's kind of where we're enlisting again the federal or the academic side to see if you can help us make that determination. Sharon's passing out these guides. You know, a lot of people have seen these already. If you haven't, good. This will be our kind of first walkthrough. These were actually created this summer, and there's been a few minor changes, not a lot, that are in those. But I think once you get it, as Sharon had recommended to me in another one, maybe mark your pages 1, 2, and 3. We didn't have page numbers on them, but if you open it up and page 1 is the first one, and then what I'd like to address actually to start with is page 2, satisfactory academic progress changes effective for fall 2011. I'll let everybody kind of get there. Let me give you a little background first as far as the nature of a financial aid satisfactory academic progress policy. We have 3 components in this policy. First one is that the student must be making degree progression, which means they're allowed X number of credits to attempt in an associate degree or in a bachelor degree, graduate, or whatever. So the government required that we set up a policy, and typically if most degrees take 120 credits, say a bachelor's, to complete, we can offer up to 150 times that, so it's like, or 150% of that, so it's 180. That's where we came up with that. There are a few degrees, as we've listed in here, which we know take more than that, and so we kind of average those out, and there are a few exceptions to the 180 credit hours, or the exception to 90 credits for an associate degree. Second component of the policy is a minimum GPA. Students need to be passing with a cumulative 2.0 grade point average. This is kind of a big one. Ferris's academic policy is a student has to have a 2.0 to graduate. So that's where we came up with that. We're kind of following the academic policy. Then the third component of our policy is a completion rate, and students must be passing 67% of the classes that they have attempted. So those are the 3 pieces we're always working around, we're always dealing with. Now what has changed, one of the big things is historically, we would assess financial aid eligibility at the end of spring semester. If a student was not meeting one of those requirements, we would put them on probation. Not only would we put them on probation, but for a whole year. One of the changes as we are transitioning now is that students are only getting 1 semester of probation. So we have around 400 students that are active students this semester who are on probation of one of those components. So that's a lot of students. Now it's campus-wide, but there's about 400 students that are in this situation. Were we to evaluate this in the end of spring semester, which is coming up, students will not automatically get 1 semester of probation. They will immediately be suspended. So that's one of the biggest changes. And again, this year is our transition time, so we have these students who are on probation right now, but when we evaluate them, when grades are in about a month, you know, if they're not meeting the policy, we will suspend them, which will require them completing an appeal process. All right. The appeal, we are working on the appeal form because it's making some major changes of including and incorporating this support information from academic advisors. There is not only an appeal form, but there is what's going to be called a SAP, Satisfactory Academic Progress Evaluation Form, Academic Advising Evaluation Form. We're working on it. We're trying to make it pre-populate with as much information as we can to kind of assist you. The students will be coming to you to have that information reviewed, and basically you're kind of looking at that to say, well, this is the situation the student's in. Can they be making progress? And there's a bunch of questions on it and some things that you can talk to the student about. So with our appeal process, then we will need this appeal form and a statement from them, and then this information form from you. Continuing on down on that page 2, again, one of the big changes that happened as of July 1st with this new change in the federal regulation is what I've just addressed, is that the government said, okay, financial aid, you've probably done a great job up till now, but let's bring in an academic side to help make an assessment of whether a student has the potential to make progress in a degree. So that's the biggest piece that's new, why we're working so hard to enlist you as advisors to help us make this determination. So these students who are on probation, they're going to be suspended, they fill out this form, and then we make a determination whether they can receive financial aid or not. One thing that has changed on this page 2, that's in that last paragraph, that is one of the things that changed from July. After we put this out, we've looked at it, where it says, if students have been placed on probation after being suspended once, and then they are suspended again, they will not be able to appeal. Well, I'm sure you work with that as well, but there's always the what-if situation. And so we have changed that on the web version, that now basically a student can certainly appeal. We always look at them. We're telling them they must appeal only if they have some extenuating circumstances, but now the verbiage is we will accept the appeal in limited cases. So that seemed pretty harsh after we went back and reviewed it. And said, wow, that's pretty tough. Students definitely run into situations, sometimes 2 semesters in a row, that just cause them to have some issues. So that's just the verbiage that changed on that one. One of the other big changes that we will be dealing with between the end of spring semester and summer semester coming up is, before, we always kind of felt that that window between spring semester and summer was so close that we didn't have time to evaluate students' financial aid eligibility. And we always kind of granted them grace. We said, okay, even if you didn't do so well, we'll let you go over the summer and give you financial aid. That is no longer the case. So when we do an evaluation, we will attempt to do it as quickly after grades are in May, and if students are enrolled for classes for summer, they can continue to be enrolled for classes for summer, but if they had been awarded financial aid and are not meeting the policy, we will suspend their financial aid eligibility. So again, a tight window, just as we're dealing with a little bit between fall semester and spring semester, that things have to happen very quickly in order to help these students continue to get their paperwork in, for us to evaluate it, to determine whether they're going to have funding for spring semester.
As advisors, many times someone will come to us and say, oh, I'm in trouble. And we have to decide, okay, do we encourage them to drop a class? Or do we encourage them to tough it out and then maybe retake it? We may need to adjust our philosophy a little bit. Can you first address the issue of someone dropping a class because they think they're going to fail it, as to how that fits into the criteria here first?
Sure. Again, students, that can be that kind of catch-22, because maybe they were worried about their grade point average, and maybe they're on probation because their grade point average is less than a 2-point. So they want to drop a class, withdraw from a class, because they know they're going to fail it. Well, if they're marginal and they're going to be less than 67%, they have another issue, and we will suspend them regardless of what the issue. If they're already on probation and they don't meet all 3 of the components, they would be suspended. So they might start out being on probation for their grade point average, think they're helping things by dropping the class because they're going to fail it, and they know it's going to impact their overall grade point average, but then they've just not passed 67%. And again, it's cumulative. We're not, at this point, we are not taking semester by semester to see, did you pass 67% of the classes you attempted in the fall? It can help them if a student is in a situation where they really got themselves in the hole. And so maybe this fall they're in that situation and they do pass all 12 credits. Maybe that's what they have and they pass it, but they're still not at 67%. We're talking through how to handle that. I think because the timing is going to be such, we have to run the process so quickly after grades are in, there's not going to be enough time to review a list. So we would suspend them, but the reality is it'll be a pretty easy fix to allow them another semester of probation, because they're trying. They did what they could do in one semester. They just couldn't get back up to the meeting the policy guidelines. Questions on that one? Because did I address what you were
Yes.
asking?
And then how about the other side? Retaking a class. They crashed and burned, or they got a D- and now they want to retake it. What's the financial aid ramifications of doing that?
Yep, thank you. Again, what's new this year is students can only receive financial aid for a class that they have been graded in, so a D- or higher, twice. They can take it once and receive financial aid, and then they didn't do well, they want to retake it, and they will receive financial aid for it one more time. Now, our academic policy allows students to take classes up to 3 times. And I know in certain areas, certain programs, they have to have a certain grade point average. We have a program internally in the financial aid that we can find, and we actually only had 4 this semester who were in a situation where they were taking a class for the 3rd time. The flip side of that, if a student fails it or withdraws from it, they can continue to take it as many times as they want until the completion rate issue catches up with them. So we're not, to us, an F is a graded class, but the Department of Ed is giving them leniency. So yeah, that is it. That is a big change. Thanks, Mike. That's a big piece of it, to be aware that, they may have a C and they need a B for their program, and they try it twice and they don't do any better than a C. Well, that 3rd time around, financial aid will not give them aid for it. Good question.
And they know that in the beginning when they say it's a repeat, or do they all of a sudden take the financial aid away from them? Does that make sense? This was new for us, and so we probably were a little into the fall semester a couple weeks before we did that, partly because of drop and add, we're watching that. So we'll now prepare because we can identify them much more quickly. But again, that repeated class, the way that works is, if a student is having a completion rate issue, the problem is those attempted hours continue to go up, and the past hours will stay the same because the grade just goes in and they get the better grade. So that's where the repeating classes can definitely be problematic for them. Yeah.
I have a student that was just suspended for a financial aid non-payment issue in their account. If they take care of that and are admitted back into the classroom, what am I supposed to do regarding the time lost?
That is a business office question because they withdrew them. I just actually had a student in my office yesterday that I wasn't aware that was happening. I knew they were doing some administrative withdrawals. I don't have a real good answer for you because now they can't be in class, right? Because they didn't pay the bill. Keep in mind the student that I had in the conversation with Christy Heater, who is the director of the business office. Them repaying that, I'm not sure is going to get them back in the class, them paying their bill, because she was going through the number of communications that had happened already, and so the student should not have been surprised that they had been communicating, I don't know, she listed like 4 different times where they had told the student, you need to pay or this is what's going to happen. So my sense is they're not going to let them back in. So it's like basically they've lost the entire semester. And yeah, and this one student was going to graduate in the spring. So, but I guess they're feeling that it's, they have communicated with them and they knew they owed the money and they knew that this was going to be the end result. So good question though. All right, on page what I call 3 is the actual policy. And I just want to touch base on a couple of things and then I'll let you go. It actually gives more information about each specific element that we were talking about, the degree progression. And occasionally you advisors may run into a form called the Satisfactory Academic Progress Program Audit Form. That is for students who do exceed the number of credit hours allowable for that degree. Getting a lot of head nods. We are working on that form to try and make it easier for you through using My Degree. Somehow, because the students that are running into this issue, My Degree doesn't have enough of the historical information yet to make it workable. But we're trying to come up and automate it as much as possible. For the most part, there's a few students who are in that situation now because they didn't graduate when they said they were, and I'm requiring some new forms to be updated. So there's a few filtering through. For the most part, you shouldn't see many of those until spring.
Let me just add 2 things from an advisory perspective. Obviously, if the student has been notified that they've been cut off, that's kind of late maybe for us to do something for them. So what we really need to do as advisors when we meet each and every semester is we probably need to spend a little more time looking at their grade point average. And if they're 2.2, we need to be suggesting a plan using the tutoring, using the resources that we have here on campus, because when it comes down to them appealing, when they've been notified that they're getting cut off, part of the consideration for the appeal by Carla and her folks in her office is, what's the student's plan? What are they going to do to make it different? And so if we can already suggest things, and in Banner, go to the comments section, you know, and you know, enter what you've recommended, because that is not only good for the student, but it makes life easier for the student if it gets to the appeal phase later.
Yeah.
And each college right now is trying to decide on the paperwork part of all of this. And that is, we're working on a form that will populate the students' information and their GPA on the header of the form. So as advisors, we can just kind of check off what we're recommending to them to do to enhance their performance. You won't have to worry about some of the stuff we've talked about. And so there's a lot of things in process, because this is new. This is our first real time of having to crunch now, come the end of this semester. So, but you know, I guess the big thing is to start early and try to help them so that they never ever get to that point. Yes?
What hasn't really been addressed is when you have a part-time program, and for example, in the master's program, a student comes in, takes their first semester, they've never taken a research methods class. They get a B in the one class and a B minus. Now that doesn't meet graduate expectation of a 3.0, they're below 3.0. Because it's part-time, they won't have the opportunity to repeat that class for a year. How is it going to be handled when the time span isn't a semester? Yet we're dealing with financial aid.
Right. We are strictly looking at that cumulative grade point average at the end of each semester. So there aren't exceptions, because whether they're taking 9 hours as full-time graduate students or they're taking a part-time load, overall the cumulative needs to be a 3.0. And again, it's going to be that situation that if they were okay and they messed up in the first semester, and in the second semester they got enough of an A to bring up their cumulative to above a 3 point. When we do the evaluation in spring, they won't be picked up as having problems, because we wouldn't evaluate students who are okay after the end of fall. It's just in the end of spring, if after 2 semesters they still did not have a 3.0 for graduate level, then we would suspend them. They could explain, say, shoot, I'm so close, it's this. The advisor would say, no, they're doing okay, they've got it, they're going to repeat it, blah, blah, blah. We will look at all of that, but the number crunching, you keep in mind, we're running everyone through, so it's an automated process. There's not as much individual reviewing going on, because it's a lot of number crunching.
So a student that actually starts in the winter is
It's disadvantage.
disadvantaged.
Sure, because if they have problems, you're absolutely right. If they start in this, they have. The only other thing that I just want to bring to your attention, I don't know how many are aware of a WebFocus program that is out there, that you could actually find out which students are on probation right now. And I know some of the colleges have run some reports, but how many use WebFocus or have access to someone that uses WebFocus? Probably someone in your department does.
Sure.
Yeah.
Usually the department secretary.
Yeah,
Or the dean's office.
It's a
We've
great
never heard of
report.
it.
Okay. It's called RO0001RB. And why that is so nice, we have added an area on there where you can sort by students who are on probation, who are suspended, but you can do it by advisor, by primary advisor. So there are some issues that, it is really complicated once you get it down, but you start with, say, the current term, which is where we are right now, and that would be the SAP code that they are in. So a student was, in probation, you want to know that, and you would put 2011-08 as the current term.
Where is this WebFocus at?
It's under Academic Affairs in WebFocus, so you'd have to have WebFocus access.
And you
So
probably
that
don't,
kills it.
you
Okay.
probably don't as faculty at this point. It's-
Okay, so it would be something within the office, if you want somebody to run, check your students, and you would know right now who may have issues at the end of the semester. Or again, when we check it and they're fine, they're going to go back into a good status, and their spring financial aid will be fine. A lot of support from a lot of areas who've actually been out there checking with those students. They've, by college or by department, and contacted them. So that was the other piece that, for students that go, oh, I didn't know I was on probation. I'm going to have a hard time buying that, because there's been so much communication, from different areas of how to do that. Questions? I've kind of thrown a lot of information. I know you've got a tight time frame, so yeah. We're not trying to make anybody's life harder or more difficult. It's trying to make these students successful. And if enough people are kind of alerting them that they've got issues going on, then we want to be able to help them out. So, we were finding access denied. There's been issues with my FSU.
Yes, it's been slow, now it's not working at all.
Yeah, it was a little unsettling this first thing this morning to walk in and try and sign in and go, access denied, and I'm thinking, Ferris sometimes can do things, and you go, I'm fired already, and I didn't even know it, it's possible. So,
Got an envelope last night, call a number.
It's under faculty services.
Yep, over.
And then
Over here, there's two holes, so it says advising listing, so
excellent.
And then select your term.
Yep.
I don't have any advisees, but this is where it would be. And
It
then
would be
there would
in
be a,
there.
Yeah,
Well,
you
if
had
you,
everybody.
you selected fall, at least, when you.
Yeah, yes,
also,
yeah.
Yep. Well, this is the section where we will be putting this academic evaluation form.
I do have
Yeah,
four
see,
left.
there's
Four
columns,
left.
just one more column that basically says probation, or like, I agree with you, that would be very
Excellent.
helpful.
It's just status.
Just curious, advisor type that listed as,
Yep. Excellent. Let me know. We will. That's, see, I mean, talking to many, many people, so that's the first suggestion we've had.
Carl, if you'd like to hang out and have lunch and visit with folks at the end, if any of you'd like to visit one-on-one, if you have a little time,
Yeah,
there's a few things
Okay.
Sharon would like to
Okay.
cover yet, and if you'd like to visit
Yeah.
one-on-one
Sure.
with us all, we'll hang out after.
Okay.
But obviously, as you can see, this is pretty important, considering that over 80% of our students get some form of financial aid. It's pretty important that we are versed on this because it's a major part of our market, as they say. Right?
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
thank you very much,
Sure,
Carla.
thank
Good
you.
job.
And I'll just hang out, guys.